Good morning, students. My name is Agatha Jansen van Rensburg, and I will be taking over from Miss Isabel, and I'll be teaching from now on the ENG31. The things we'll be focusing on for this coming exam would be understanding the inductive teaching method, identifying and understanding grammar, all the bits of grammar, planning grammar lessons, the differences between active and passive voice and using it in the class, identifying and understanding the different parts of speech, benefits of using songs in the English class, identifying and understanding the different types of adjectives, know what assessment is and how it is used effectively, and to understand the importance of peer assessment. The inductive teaching method starts with the assumption that we know something about the topic, but we want to know more and want to find out more, and then we'll use that to formulate a rule about what we've learned. There are different types of inductive teaching methods which you guys need to focus on, and they are problem-based learning. As the name suggests, the learners are presented with a real-world problem that needs to be solved. Problem-based learning generally incorporates collaborative learning by placing the students into groups. Collectively, they formulate and evaluate their various solutions, select the best choice, and present their argument for the solution. In problem-based learning, learners do not receive background instruction, and emphasis is not on correct answers, but on the investigative process. The second one is discovery learning. Learners are given a problem which they have to find the solution for themselves. The teacher is just the facilitator. In other words, the learners have to find a solution by trial and error, and they also refer to this as the guided discovery. Then the third one is the inquiry-based learning. Learners are presented with a challenge which will require knowledge that has not been completely covered. The challenge may come in a question that needs a solution, an observation that needs to be explained, or data set that must be analyzed, or a hypothesis that needs to be given and tested. The fourth one is project-based learning. Learners are presented with an assignment that requires them to design or produce an expected outcome. The final product may be a formal written or oral presentation of their process and outcome. Project-based learning can be assigned to individuals or groups. Unlike problem-based learning, this style of inductive learning provides the learners with the necessary background knowledge and is focused more on the solution, getting to the answer. The fifth one is case-based learning. Learners are presented with real-life scenarios or cases in which they hypothetically assume various roles. The cases tend to be very well structured, filled with elaborate details to incorporate many of the variable real-life problems that they contain. Learners learn to apply material that has already been covered in class and is somewhat familiar. Case-based learning can be assigned to individual learners or in groups. Research informs us that case-based learning offers the learners the opportunity to learn and practice higher-order thinking, problem-solving, and critical thinking skills. The sixth one is just-in-time teaching. Learners are presented with conceptual questions at the beginning of the class. These questions are usually done in an electronic or web-based mode, so they can be accessed immediately. The teacher then uses the results of the assessment to adjust the lesson and address misconceptions the students may have about the subject content. This method is classified as inductive because the students are being asked questions about material they have not yet studied. This method is used primarily in higher-order thinking. Now, which you need to focus for the upcoming exam, is how is the inductive method an effective process for obtaining general observation-based information about the world. The inductive method is an extremely effective process for obtaining general observation-based information about the world. In fact, the inductive method, whether guided in classrooms or occurring in non-academic settings, is one of the most common and natural forms of making logical assumptions about what we observe. Inductive reasoning allows us to gather ideas about an infinite number of events or phenomena in real life. Use of the inductive method as a teaching tool to guide students through critical thinking, awareness, and evaluation. Throughout the years, the author or the writer of this article have used inductive teaching methods to teach students concepts and generalizations. He has presented students with data, asked them to make observations of that data, and on the basis of those observations, he has asked students to state the concept or generalization that he was teaching. He found that this to be an effective teaching strategy because it encourages participation, which helps any activity to be more interesting. As you know, the more interesting an activity is, the easier it is to get students focused on and involved in lessons. In other words, you need to make it real life for the students. You need to make it relevant for them in using things that's relevant for them today, not 50, 30 years ago. Students not only learn content, but they learn how to process data and how to use it to arrive at appropriate conclusions. This teaching method involves 3 general initiatives: planning the activity, executing the activity, and evaluating the outcome. The second unit we will be focusing on would be grammar. There are several different kinds of nouns. You need to know these nouns. You need to be able to identify them within different sentences. You will find common nouns, and a common noun is a word used for a class or person, place, or thing. Simple things: man, car, house, building, something you can touch. Proper nouns is the name of a person or the place or the thing. For example, Michelle, the United Nations, Nike, Adidas, all of those are proper nouns. Abstract nouns, those are the ones that's a bit more difficult to identify within sentences. They are used within your 5 senses. So you cannot see them, you cannot hear them, you cannot smell them, you can't taste them, and you can't feel them. And those examples would be bravery, sadness, guilt, happiness, joy, and then the last one is the concrete nouns. That's the easiest one. Those ones are registered on your 5 senses. There you use your 5 senses. You can taste it, you can touch it, you can smell it, you can feel it. Mat, table, car, elephant. Okay, the importance of planning an English lesson and what should be planned. Fail to plan and plan to fail is the common quote there. Know that. What does this tell us? If you do not plan your actions, words, strategies, and teaching very carefully, you are setting yourself up for failure. There are 6 questions you need to ask yourself when you prepare your planning for a lesson. You need to look at the what to teach. You need to look at the who does what. This refers to what the teacher must do and what the learners are expected to do. When, and there you will look at what stage of the lesson the teacher is going to act, and when are the learners expected to act upon and do activities. The how is the teacher going to elicit what is expected from the learners, and how are the learners, how are they expected to perform within this activity. And then where, at what stage in the lesson will certain activities happen. So make sure that you know that you cover those 6 question words when you plan for an activity. Information ideas to use to plan a lesson or nouns. Now, this is an example for you to look at when you are going to have to plan a lesson. And you could be asked to plan a lesson on nouns. So if you look at the outline of this, you will say, what are common nouns? That would be your prior knowledge to find out. Common nouns is a general name for a place, person, or thing, or an idea. Common nouns are usually not capitalized unless they begin a sentence or are part of a title. And they are, for example, boy, team. There you can see the examples. There you can ask, in that activity, brainstorm and give some common nouns for each. So you can ask the students in your class to do a brainstorm for the prior knowledge. Then you can do a common and a proper noun sentence strip. So you can give the kids sentences, and then they have to fill in the sentences, or they have to highlight the nouns and the proper nouns, so distinguish between the two. There could be a battle of the brains. How many common nouns can you think of on a specific topic? So you can give the topics, and then you can maybe say, you can divide the class into 2 groups and tell them, let's see, is it the boys or the girls that's going to win this one? Then you can also say how many proper nouns can you think of on a specific topic again, and you can give the topics, and then the students need to then do another competition to find out. There could be a group activity where you can do a magazine picture or word search. You can create a poster on behalf. One half will be on common nouns, the other half will be on proper nouns, and you can then let the kids do like a explaining to each other. You can divide the class into 2, where the one group becomes the specialists on proper nouns and the others become specialists on common nouns, and then these 2 groups can present to each other. Yes. Then you can also just give an activity where they are going to highlight the specific nouns that you want them to understand and identify. Here's an example of nouns, and then you can give the sentences to the students, and then you can tell them that they should highlight the word and say whether it's proper or common, concrete, abstract. You can bring in all 4, and then they have to label it, and you can then assess their understanding on the different nouns. Then for the next unit, we will be focusing on active and passive voice. You need to know the difference between active and passive voice. Active voice describes a sentence where the subject performs the action stated by the verb. In passive voice sentences, the subject is acted upon by the verb. You need to understand those 2 descriptions on the difference between active and passive. In the slide, you will see the examples of what would be an active voice sentence, and you will see the example of the passive voice sentence. The first 2, many tourists have visited the castle, would be active because that's happening. That castle has been visited by many tourists. Passive, it's in the past. So please go through the slide and check the different examples. Then parts of speech. That is what makes up grammar. If you don't know the different parts of speech, then you will find grammar difficult. And the different parts of speech that we will be focusing on would be the verb, the noun, the adjective and the adverb, preposition, pronoun, conjunctions, and interjections. For each one there in this table, you will see what the function is. You will see the example of what a verb or a noun or an adjective looks like, and then there would be a sentence example. Go through the slides, make sure you understand these different parts of speech. You need to be able to identify them within sentences. You need to maybe label them, and you need to maybe be able to write a word or a sentence in the past verb tense. So make sure. Please use your guide as well to back up your studying. For Unit 5, the different types of grammar practices. There are 3. Awareness. After the learners have been introduced to the structure, they are given opportunities to encounter it within some kind of discourse and do a task that focuses their attention on its form and or meaning. For example, learners are given a newspaper article and asked to find and underline all the examples of the past tense that they can find. Control drills. Learners produce examples of the structure. These examples are, however, predetermined by the teacher or textbook and have to conform to very clear closed-ended cues. Write or say statements about John, modeled on the following example. John drinks tea, but he doesn't drink coffee. What does he like? How does he speak? So there are different activities that's been pre-done by the teacher so that it's a drill for the students to understand the different parts of grammar. Then the meaningful drills. Again, the responses are very controlled, but learners can make a limited choice of vocabulary. For example, again, in order to practice forms of the present simple tense, choose someone you know very well and write down their name. Now compose true statements about them according to the following model. What he or she likes, what he or she doesn't like, what they enjoy, what they drink, how they speak. So then you write those things, and then those would be the different parts of speech and practices of grammar. The next unit would be benefits of using songs in the English classroom. How can songs benefit to the English classroom? And these are the following steps and tips that would help you. The songs are highly memorable and motivating. In any form, they constitute a powerful subculture with their own rituals. Now, in other words, if you are teaching students today and you are using music from the 80s or the 70s, they would not find a good link towards that. It would be better using songs where that's more relevant today, what they would like. Focus on artists like Rihanna and Drake and things that the kids relate to. Furthermore, through using traditional folk songs, the base of the learner's knowledge of the target culture can be broadened. In other words, use for the specific culture. So depending on where you are teaching, look at folk songs that's been used related to the culture, and then use it to broaden their knowledge. Correctly chosen traditional folk songs have the dual motivating attack of pretty tunes and interesting stories, plus for many students, the added ingredient of novelty. Most songs, especially folk songs, follow a regularly repeated verse formed with rhyme. And we all know that students learn better when there's a rhyme and a repeated rhyme, and have a series of other discourse features which makes them easy to follow. If kids can relate to that, they will relate to the activity or to the content of the subject matter, and then they will understand and remember it much better. Different types of adjectives. Please focus on the different forms. You need to be able to identify them within sentences. You need to be able to write them in that type of form. Now, to just quickly get the background again of an adjective modifies a noun or a pronoun by describing, identifying, or quantifying words. An adjective usually precedes the noun or the pronoun which is modified. The different types of adjectives that we can find are the possessive adjectives. A possessive adjective, it's what you own, it's mine, yours, his. When you possess something, you own it. It is used as an adjective and modifies a noun or a noun phrase as in the following sentence. I can't complete my assignment because I don't have the textbook. Demonstrative adjectives, they demonstrate something. This, these, that, those. So you demonstrate towards something. When the librarian tripped over that cord, she dropped a pile of books. So those are demonstrative. The interrogative adjectives you are interrogating someone. You need to think about it like that. So it's like which, what, why. So you are asking these questions to find out what, to give it a more clearance. Which plants should be watered twice a week, for an example. And then in the indefinite adjectives, an indefinite adjective is similar to an indefinite pronoun, except that it modifies the noun. For example, many people believe that corporations are undertaxed. So make sure you know the differences of the adjectives, be able to identify them, underline them, and even describe them. The next unit, we'll be focusing on assessment. Assessment is the ongoing process of gathering, analyzing, and reflecting on evidence to make informed and consistent judgments to improve future learning. There are three overarching purposes of assessment for improved learning and deep understanding. The following three are assessment for learning, which occurs when teachers use inferences about learner progress to inform their teaching. The second one is assessment as learning, This occurs when learners reflect on and monitor their progress to inform their future learning goals. And assessment of learning occurs when teachers use evidence of learning to make judgments on learner achievement against goals and standards. So those three you need to know and be able to explain. Then the next important thing is looking at peer marking and how it helps you. Okay. An English teacher has a number of options on how to mark and assess writing done by learners. Either you mark it yourself, you discuss answers or possible responses and allow learners to make their own work, or allow the learners to mark each other's work, peer marking. All these methods are valid and acceptable. We must just always remember that if the marks are going to be recorded, the learners may not be allowed to mark. If you find it very important that learners do not mark their own or their classmates' work from time to time, this is a valuable method of teaching and practicing why some answers are wrong and why and how to correct the answers. But these marks may never be used for continuous assessment purposes or for other purposes of promotion. The teacher should always control what the learners did. To validate their marking, you are required to sign and date the exercises marked by your learners. And you need to then look at the following steps, what this implies. Are you aware of how they are marked? Are you satisfied with how they've marked it? So the importance of peer marking is there. You need to practice it, you need to do it, but you can't use it as your record results. You can't use it as your assessments at the end of the day when you are reporting on this. Okay, so if there are any questions regarding any of these topics for the upcoming exam, you are more than welcome to send me an SMS to this number, and I will get back to you as soon as possible to answer your questions and to explain even further. As I said again, please make sure that you use your guide with relation to these specific aims for the upcoming examination.